Okay, guys, we have Utah's own Casey Casper of Bang on Barbecue, who just kind of, I hate to say come out of nowhere.
He did.
To win the Pitstop Championship Series SCA just recently here in American Fork, Utah. That one that we talked with Lene about. He didn't necessarily win that contest, but he won the series. So say hi, Casey.
Hey, how's it going?
So tell us about this series. What was the Pitstop Championship Series?
Well, the series itself was, I believe it was 5 cooks, and to qualify in points, you had to finish in the top 10, 3 out of the 5 cooks, which is what actually made up the series.
And so you cooked all of them, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I cooked every comp that was in Utah this year. So I think there was only one other that wasn't a state championship. But
so let me set the scene real quick. Fidel Astora.
Yeah.
Did I say his name? I just don't know why. I screwed that name up. Whatever. Fidel. We all know him as Fidel from Utah Barbecue Company, legendary cook in Utah, basically running away with this thing, right? No one's going to catch Fidel. He's killing it. He's getting all the right points where he needs to get points. He's doing all these things right. Everyone's comes down to ThermoWorks. And one thing has to happen. One thing. Well, 2. Casey has got to take a top 10 and Fidel has got to not.
Right.
And Casey, what place
did you take? That's exactly what happened. I took 5th place.
5th place, and Fidel didn't finish in the top 10. So like a dark horse, he comes out of nowhere to win this thing. And I'm not trying to downplay Casey, because our first ever competition here, Casey won. And we're thinking to ourselves, a
fluke.
Who's that guy, right? Comes out the second time. What do you do the second time? Like 6th?
9th.
9th.
And
on and on and on. I mean, top 10, top 10, top 10, top 10, just constantly coming in hot, on all these competitions. And all of a sudden, man, just out of nowhere, after the comp, we announced Lene the winner of the day. Then we announced the championship series, and it was Casey Casper of Bang on Barbecue. And how was that for you?
It was honestly a huge surprise, because like you said, Fidel had it. I went into Saturday happy that I was going to come out 2nd place out of all the cooks that we cook against. Like 2nd place was going to be awesome, but I wanted to win, so I wanted to cook the best steak that I could that day. And I feel like I did. And it got me a 5th, and I don't know, it was amazing. Honestly, like, it'd be different if you were in first and you just kept first, to win it, but to come from behind and win it like that, it was awesome.
So like you said, he really did come from behind too. If you guys go to the barbecue pit stops and watch their videos, he came flying out of nowhere in the
video. Oh yeah, I did, didn't I? That's right.
So our very first competition ever, and this is what I want to kind of talk about a little bit with you, Casey. I know that you're a fabulous cook. You've just recently took first place in a backyard competition. Was this your first one in Ogden?
No, that was our 2nd backyard comp. We did one last year at the Southtown or the Equestrian Center out there in South Jordan. Okay. And we took 3rd in ribs and 3rd in chicken in that one. And then the second one we did was Ogden, and we GC'd that backyard there.
So you do backyard do backyard comps, and you do steak cook-offs. And then, so I just kind of want to touch on a little bit of that. So someone who's sitting here listening to this podcast who wants to get into barbecue and wants to get into SCAs, and, some of us, I mean, I've been cooking KCBS, and so has Anthony, for a long time. We forget what it was like to go to those backyard competitions. So we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that's kind of the angle I want to talk about here. So let's just go back to steak for 1 second. So you come out to this not ThermoWorks. This was the barbecue pit stop in Lehi, Utah. It was our very first SCA ever in Utah, and you win it. And now you're going to go to Fort Worth, Texas to compete against hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Tell me, how do you get to that point when you come out to your first comp and you win it? What's the process there?
Oh, like leading up to that, just honestly, my wife and I, we had friends over weekly, if not more than once a week, and just practice steaks as often as we could, and had our friends help us narrow down a flavor that we thought was really good. And yeah, I mean, it all comes down to practice, honestly. I mean, I don't think you could cook your very first steak at your very first comp and do very well, but I think if you're willing to take some criticism, because not every practice steak you make is going to be as good as you want it to be, because you're going to think they're all awesome, and people are going to be like, whoa, that's not good. And then you're back to the drawing board, you know?
Mm-hmm. So what was your process? Like, did you go to Walmart? I mean, it's kind of expensive. Steaks are expensive. Like, how did you swing it?
Steaks are. We did. Oddly enough, I had gotten, well, we've been barbecuing for a long time too. So it's not the best route, I would say, if you're going to try and cook a lot of steaks, but I had gotten a Snyder Brothers gift card. So I spent that whole thing on ribeyes over a couple of months. And then in between those, yeah, just looking for sales at Smith's, at Harmon's, at Costco, anywhere I could get a hold of a steak for a decent price, you know?
Right. So what are you cooking on? Let's just start off with that. Were you on like a Weber, like most people start, and then you jumped into a better cooker, or did you start out?
Yeah, I was.
So
last year I was on a Weber, just a 22, with a set of grill grates. And that's what I competed with in Texas also last year. And then over the off season, I bought a PK because it seems like everybody buys a PK. And I started running that, and I used that all of the cook-offs this year was the PK. So yeah, that's what I'm running right now, PK and grill grates. And
be honest though, is there a huge difference between the PK and the Weber?
Oh gosh, I love the PK right now, but I wouldn't tell somebody that already has a Weber that they're at a disadvantage using it. Mm-hmm. Like, use it. It works. There's plenty of people who use them still and make them work. I mean, they get hot. That's all you need it to do, honestly.
That's true. That's true. I mean, so when you had all these friends over. See, this is a funny story I have, and you can tell me what you want to do. But so I did the same thing you did. My first steak cook-off, I had a whole bunch of friends over. We were trying to get everyone to, taste the steaks and I wanted everyone's consensus. And then the funny thing is I actually watched a YouTube video of Malcolm Reed on how to
barbecue, right?
Barbecue,
right? The SCA version, right?
Yes, me too.
Everyone loved it. Wasn't even close. But me being who I am, I can't just do that, even though I do it all the time. Actually, that's a lie. I have to take that back. I do it a lot. Actually, I've actually used John Lindsay's exact recipe in a competition once. I do it for sure. But this is what I thought everyone's going to use this recipe. This is at the time for us on YouTube, it was probably the only video out there, right? I couldn't find one. Maybe Harry So's.
And that was basic.
And that's it. So I'm going to go use it, right?
Yeah.
And I go another direction. I do okay, but you take that recipe and you won. Is that right?
To a T. I used barbecue hot and AP and his steak rub. And I honestly, that was the highest taste score I've ever gotten. It's the highest overall score I've ever gotten. And I, now thinking about that, don't know why I changed.
Well, that's another thing I want to talk about too, is like, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. It tastes amazing.
Right. Like, why do we decide that something works and we go away from it? Like, why would you go away from that? Why did you go away from it? And you do well. I mean, you've gone away from it. You've done your own thing now, and you're still extremely consistent with what you're doing. So it just shows the level of cook that you are. But what made you go away from that winning recipe?
I think the only thing that really made me go away from it is, like you said, at that time, we didn't really know anything else. for the SCA here in Utah. And after I went out to Texas and saw so many different rubs and other things being used, I just ordered a bunch of them and tried them throughout the off season and kept doing the same thing with friends. And Malcolm's always did well, but there was one or two combinations that would do better consistently than that one. And that's really the only reason I changed. Is that the steak just started winning out over Malcolm's recipe.
Right. I'll give you guys a tip too. I run the 3 of those recipes out of my 6, or 3 of those ingredients out of my 6.
Out of your 6.
Out of my 6, yes.
So you're like a double barreled shotgun when it comes to SCA.
Yeah, so I'm like, boom, shoot it with Malcolm Reed's recipe, and then I come over the top with.
You don't even have to do that. Just pull both triggers, man.
Then I use both of them, and then I don't do so good, and then AJ does well. So
yeah,
he uses the same rubs as you, right?
All of your seasoning in a Ziploc bag, and
we're all on the same containers, everything, same cook, everything, dude.
Weird,
right?
Weird. So what changed for you, Casey? And again, I've changed my recipe very recently, and it's not working out for me at all. What can you tell me that would help me a little bit? Because I'm dying here, man. California sucked.
My process for changing my seasoning was I pretty much I changed everything. I didn't do like you probably should and change one small thing at a time. I just blew it completely out and went 3, 4 different new rubs. And yeah, I just blew it completely out. So it was just a complete process change is what it really came down to.
And you did the same thing. You just got a whole bunch of people together to cook a bunch of steaks in front of, or did you just like...
Exactly. I would always still do the Malcolm, and then I would mix in, I do another 1 or 2 along with that. So I usually do 3 practice steaks at a time, 2 new ones and 1 that I've been using, and see which one does better. And I'll do that a couple of times in a row. I don't just go off of like one day, like, all right, this one did better today, so that's the one I'm using, It's got to do better a couple of times, and then I'll try it.
Right. So let's talk about your steak prep. You don't have to get into too much detail if you don't want to. But
no, do tell me everything.
It's your choice. But are you like tying, pinwheeling? Are you cutting out fats and moo gluing it back together? Just tell us your process.
Did you say moo gluing?
Yeah, that's what it's called. Moo glue. Moo glue.
Huh.
Yeah. Look it on Amazon.
Who moo glues their steak?
Yeah. I'm not telling you because I know people that do it, and that's it.
You moo glue your steak?
No, I have not. No. I've tried to practice one.
You're a moo gluer,
but I know somebody who's winning and using it.
Moo gluer.
Yep. So it's
for me
secret.
I tie. I don't do the pinwheels. I don't use any skewers. I try and trim little enough that I don't have a problem with the spinalis separating usually. I do use one toothpick, and I put it, I know before I start cooking my steak which way I want it to sit in the box. So at 12 o'clock from there, I put one toothpick in the judged end of the steak, and I use that as a pointer just to help me, like, for whatever grill marks I want to put on the steak. So it's just like an indicator. But other than that, no, not really any toothpicks or skewers or any of that.
Are you a try-hard or just straight spinalis selector?
You know what? It might sound weird. I don't look for either one of those. I look for what I think is the best looking steak. I picked 2 try-hards this year and didn't realize that I had picked try-hards until I was walking out of the selection area and was like, oh, this is a try-hard. It just had better marbling and a better looking spinalis, but I didn't pick it because it was a try-hard.
Hey, Rusty, can you touch on that a little bit? What am I talking about when I'm just talking about a spinalis versus a try-hard steak? So
where the ribeye itself, the prime rib, comes from is there's part of the chuck roast. It's connected to that. And the closest you are to the chuck is a more spinalis. You got more of the chuck part of it. And there's what's called tri-heart, which is the third muscle in it. And so if you look at a steak, you see a spinalis, which is the very top. It kind of is a rounded top where the round part is. That's usually going to be your spinalis. And then sometimes there's a little off to the left or right, depending on how the steak's sitting, is a little round muscle, and it's really tender. It's in California, I had the biggest spinalis, but unfortunately I had the biggest try hard too. And the problem with it is that my try hard took up half my steak. So when the judges cut into it, one side was perfectly medium, but the other was medium rare. So though I like them, I kind of try to stay away from them if I can. Unfortunately, the past few competitions, I was not able to because it was either try hard or death, you know? So, and I, for some reason, have been the last pick every single time, so I'm not getting those good spinalis pieces. But if I can, I stay away from try hard. I try hard to do it.
Oh, dad joke. Huh? Dad joke.
Did you get that one? Everyone out there, you can use that joke. Go ahead. You have my permission.
Don't use it.
So your process is just like, this steak looks awesome, or what are you looking for exactly? Is that a marbling issue, or is it just like, hey man, this spinalis rocks and that's what I'm using?
Yeah. More marbling in the loin area of it, you know, because if it's marbled in there, you know the spinalis is going to be fairly tender at least. And I've never tenderized my steak as far as like poking holes in it and all that with a fork or anything.
So hold on, you don't do any kind of tenderizing at all? I don't know. Where do your tenderizing texture scores stand?
They have been 48s, 49s this season.
Interesting.
I think I've hit a 50 in texture once. You know, I listened to a lot of John Lindsay's stuff, and he had mentioned that he thinks a lot of the texture scores that are bad come from it being too tender. Mm-hmm. So I err on the side of caution, and maybe if my score is bad, it's not tender enough, but I don't usually have to worry about it being too tender.
Interesting. In California, we had that issue just recently, and I talk about this a little bit in the intro, but man, with Jerry Aguilar of Burning Luton, the guy's a machine, right? So if he's going to cook a steak, I'm pretty much sure the next one's going to taste exactly the same, because that's just the kind of the preparation and detail that guy puts into his work. So I had his first steak, and it was perfect, man. You bite into that. It was a good bite, and that thing just melted in your mouth like butter. And to me, that's a perfectly tenderized steak. The dude got 44. I couldn't believe it. Like, and some of these steaks that I was trying were kind of rough. I'm like, all right, okay, well, good luck on that, sir. And I remembered them, and those guys were getting like 48s, 47s, you know, not great, but a whole lot better than 44. I got a 46, and I felt like mine was. So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's no reason to really, and you've obviously never had a problem not tenderizing your steak. Do you marinate it instead? Like, do you have any kind of?
I do marinade.
Tenderizer.
Yep. But yeah, as far as actually physically doing it with something, I don't do that, and I didn't last year either. So, I mean, I've only cooked 9, I believe, total comps.
Yeah.
But I've finished in the top 10 6 times. So,
listen to all you West.
That's not hurting me.
Your Middle America, East Coast guys. You're thinking to yourself, 9 competitions. That he's like a grizzled vet in here in Utah and the West Coast, man. 9 competitions. You're like, you know, you got like a scar on your face, you know, caused from trimming your steak.
There's teams out in the Midwest that are cooking that in 2 weeks, you know, 3 weeks.
I know, man.
Triples, you know, I've heard of those.
All those Midwesters out there right now just smug. They're all like, I just did 45 competitions in one day, all within 2 blocks of my house. They have punch cards. They go so often.
You go to 20 comps, you get one free.
Yeah, exactly. No wonder. They can do cool stuff. We have to friggin' scrape, man. We're at the mercy of barbecue pit stop and driving to California and sometimes Arizona.
Yeah. And now Nevada next month.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yep. Las Vegas, by the way. If you guys are listening, there is a competition in Las Vegas, Nevada. It will be a double. It is October 17th. Wow. 12th was so not close to that.
About a week out.
But hey, if someone goes down on the 12th, you're welcome. Have a great time in Vegas for a week.
Right?
God, you guys are so negative. So, okay, getting back to steak here. So, you don't what's the word? Stick it. Jacquard. Thank you. You do use a tenderizer. You do kind of look for a bigger spinalis. You're looking for more for marbling than anything else. When it comes to steak selection, what are some tips you can give some people when you get the steak back? What do you do? What's your process? You've gotten 2 steaks. You've gone back to your camp. What's the process there?
I usually know, not always, but I usually know which steak I'm going to turn in before I even get back to the camp. You know,
this is before you trim it.
Yeah, before I turn in.
Got it.
So I usually, sometimes the selection takes a little bit and they get a little warmed up. So I throw them back on the ice for a good little while and let them firm back up before I start to trim. And then I trim them, I tie them, throw them back on the ice. A lot of people that I've heard, they'll let their steaks sit out pretty much until they're ready to cook. Like they want them almost above room temp, you know, to throw on. And I typically pull my steaks out maybe usually 20 minutes before I cook them. So I'll do my first couple seasonings and throw them right back in the ice and let them stay cold. And then on my final seasoning, it usually goes on about 20 minutes before I start cooking. And then I'll let it just sit out for those 20 minutes. And it just helps me be more consistent.
And would you do a practice steak? And if so, what are you looking for when you do a practice steak? What's the purpose for you doing it?
I do usually do a practice steak, and almost the only reason I cook it is for doneness, to see how far a steak is going to carry over that day. Because I've had some really weird numbers between cooking at home and cooking at comps, where I'll have a steak carry over 14 degrees, and at a comp I'll have it carry over 5. And so I usually cook the practice steak just for seeing how done this is going to go that day.
So obviously you're doing grill marks, so you're hitting the grill. Are you cooking under like charcoal, lump coal?
Charcoal briquettes. I use Kingsford Pro. I wanted to use B&B, but they're just a little harder to get consistently for us. And I can get the Kingsford Pro, and I've used them enough that I know what one chimney of Kingsford is going to do for me, and I can pretty much count on that. So
speaking of Midwesters, they're probably just laughed at you going, "Oh, we can get whatever we want."
Rusty has to go to every Costco to go find some briquettes.
I'm on a lifelong search. I'm like offering $4,000 a bag for freaking whatever.
Kingsford.
Right.
And then
it's rough out here.
People in the Midwest are like commenting, "Oh, I've just walked down to my 7-Eleven and I was able to get whatever I wanted."
Whatever.
Please, people, light Rusty's page up, not mine, about him talking about Midwesters. So
I'm just saying it's true. They're sitting, they know it's true. They're listening right now, going, nodding their head, going, "Yeah, well, you know, I did get mine at 7-Eleven."
Yeah. You don't ever see them struggling to find a bag of B&B before
no, they don't. They just were walking down the street and trip. Oh crap! Another bag of B&B. Yeah. Oh my gosh!
These things are everywhere.
Right. So let's talk about when it comes off the grill. What are you doing? Are you resting it? Butter bathing? You know, you don't like. Once again, you don't have to answer all my questions, but please do.
That's fine. I don't mind. I don't rest my steak any longer than it takes for me to put it in the box, cut the string off it, and situate it the way I want it, and then I just take it. I figure it's gonna do its little bit of carryover on my walk over there, and by the time they get it, it should still be nice and hot. And
yeah, see, I like that one because I've known a couple people, Scott Harris for one, who took first place in Ogden with his steak. He, not no fault of his own, he just didn't rest his steak because he was like running late, so he just threw it in. And every time I hear that, someone's like, "Oh, and I won," you know. There's something to that, man. Not resting that steak. I'm telling you, people are winning, not resting steaks. It's crazy. By the way, let's just intervene a little bit and talk. And then we talked about this Pitstop championship series, but this is COVID. And I talked about this in the intro, but this is COVID, right? This is a big competition because what's happening right now is that California shut down, Arizona shut down, Boise, Idaho shut down, Montana, Colorado. There are no state competitions. So this entire year, we have gotten flooded by all of these states. Some of the best state cooks in Arizona, in California,
Washington,
in Idaho, from Utah, you name it. The West Coast kind of converged on Utah for all of these. So another just hats off to you for winning it because this was not an easy competition. And these guys were showing up to every single one. It wasn't just off and on like, oh, I'm just going to show up to one. And these guys were here to win. We had Phil the Grill here a bunch of times. We had Lene Oxley Loop. We had Jerry from Burnin' and Loon. We had Kyle from, I'm not going to say your last name, Kyle. I love you to death.
We had
from
the Moody's
behind barbecue. We had Sonny and Jeff Moody here.
from Nashville. Midwesters.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it was they're the best of the best that we have out this way. We're here all the time. And like you said, they came to win. And we were just consistent. You know what I mean? We didn't take a first place this year. But we took a couple of thirds and a fifth and an eighth, I believe, is what our finishes were. So yeah, it was just about being consistent, really, honestly. I mean, because it was tough.
That's competition, though. Consistency. You know, like I was saying, Nate Benson of Uncle Jesse's, he has a stake. He just won his first this year in our state competition series. And then he went down to California and took a 10th place. That's great. That's the stuff you're looking for. You know, if I can come in right now, I'm not doing too well because I'm just I'm going to sear. No, I'm not. I'm going to change my recipe last minute. So I would love
being like water.
Yeah, I would love to be in that moment where, you know, that I would love to have that where I'm just super consistent. So consistency is the key. So let's talk about consistency. What do you feel brings that consistency to your cooks?
As far as my timeline goes, I set as many alarms as I need to on my phone to go off at, you know, the particular time that I want to flip my steak in the marinade, or how long I want to let it dry after I marinate it, to season it, and then between seasonings and things like that. So I just have a timeline laid out that I stick to, and I went away from that one time this year, and I took 30th place. So, you know, I went third, 30th, because I went away from my plan, and now, I mean, I don't do that. And so, yeah, I just stick to a timeline, whatever timeline works for people, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be as strict or
so timeline works for you. Is there any kind of thing you're doing with your PK? Because I know some people are so Dewey Decimal about certain things, like how far their coals are from their grill grates every single time, all this stuff. Is there consistency stuff that you do in that area?
As far as my PK, I like, you know, the Weber charcoal chimney.
Yeah.
I do one of those chimneys full, and that's all I do. I light it about 45 minutes before I'm going to cook. I let it burn in the chimney for, you know, 40, 45 minutes. Well, it's 45 minutes. Like I said, I just stick to a time, so it's not roughly. It's 45 minutes, it burns. I pour it in. I cover half of and I guess I do the left-hand side, the hinge side, every single time because I just like it there better. I pour that whole thing over the half of that. I spread it out with my coal rake, throw the grill grates on there and let them go for 20 minutes, and then I'm ready to cook.
So it really is a time thing
wide open
as far as consistency goes.
Yeah, it is. It's all times for me.
So the way to beat Casey is feed him Busch Lights and steal his phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very Busch Lights. Do you drink Busch Lights, Casey?
Dirty pool. I'll drink pretty much any beer, honestly.
They're just cheaper.
Right? I'm a Pabst guy most of the time, but.
Okay.
But yeah.
So give him Pabst.
Give him PBRs.
And steal his phone.
PBRs.
Okay.
Done.
That's all I need to do. Wish I would have known that a year ago. But so the consistency part obviously is good because and timing is everything. Because if you forget what your timings are, that throws everything off. But for me, it's like I want to get down to the practicing of, you know, Kyle from I've said this before on the podcast, but Kyle from Get Your Behind Barbecue, he said we don't practice to win, we practice so we don't get it wrong, you know. And so we want to practice to get these little details in. So when anywhere in a various situation, it's almost like muscle memory. You see boxers running around and they're shadow boxing. They're not shadow boxing to keep their heart rate up. They're doing that so they're building up muscle memory. So when they're in a fight, their fists just go, you know, where they're supposed to in the way that they want them to. It's the same kind of concept. So when you're practicing those little details. So you have to pay attention to those little details. Writing things down. What worked? What temperature were you cooking your steaks at to get those perfect grills? I used to go a lower temperature. I went to a medium temperature to 550-ish. I'm actually thinking about upping my temperatures and working with that. And if it does hit, I have to remember what temperature that valley was. The valley in between my grill grates. So when I do it again, I can replicate that exactly. And what I'll do is I'll fish around my PK and I will say, okay, that's at 550. And then I'll hit it again between the next flip because, you know, I just put a cold steak on that. So it might not be 550 next time. It might be over here. It's just those little consistency things that you can do that you have to remember. But otherwise, that if you keep on just going down the road and winning and losing and winning and losing, you'll never find out why. And, you know, you need to find these little details that you stick to, these little processes that work for you. The devil is in the details, you know, just like football. It's a game of inches. With barbecue, specifically steak. It's a game of detail. And to stay consistent and get out there every single time you put in any situation and be able to run your program to a T. First, find the program. That's what I'm working on. That's what we're doing right now over at Rusty Co.
Right.
Over at Rusty Co. We are working on a program. We're working that through. But once I get that program down, once I'm winning in California and Utah and even out in the Midwest where charcoal runs like a river, I will dial in those processes to a T so that I know every single thing I'm doing, every single cook, every single time. And that's the consistency that people should look for. And that's kind of what you got going on here with your timing and your different stuff like that. Do you write things down? How do you remember that?
I do. Yeah. I've got a whole timesheet that, you know, just in the notes in my phone. I've done it. I mean, like I said, I've cooked 9 competitions. I probably cooked 300 steaks. You know what I mean? And I do 95% of the time, I do my full practice at home like I would a comp. Like I give myself, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, but I give myself a turn-in time at home so that I have to have this steak done by this certain time at the house. So I can't get lazy or I can't get, you know, whatever. I make myself stick to the timeline. So I've done it a bunch of times. So I pretty well know the timeline, but I do still revert back to my notes just to make sure, you know?
Right. Rusty cooked 300 steaks before he went to California.
I did not cook anything before I went to California.
Normally
I bought
does
steaks. No, I usually practice like crazy.
Yeah, you do.
This time I didn't.
I mean,
I changed the whole recipe. I had changed the whole game. I'm
being
such
like water.
an idiot.
Being like water.
Why? I'm such an idiot.
I'm an idiot too because I haven't cooked 300 steaks, but I've cooked a lot of them.
You feel like that.
That was probably over
Your
exaggerating.
checkbook feels like you have, especially these COVID times, man. Doing practice in COVID is like you go from a $17 steak, you know, to a $45 steak. You're like, oh my god, I got to practice.
Yeah, really though.
Just to go down to California and lose.
You had fun though, right? I guess.
Yeah, he has a great time hanging out by himself and.
Yeah, it was fun.
Stressing. But I want to know what your game plan is for next season. You made a commitment to Rusty.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know what you plan on doing about that. We had a video interview. If you go to the Pitmaster's Instagram, you can watch that video there. But you committed to searing a steak next season. We have that on video. I'm
going to stick to it too. Yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I said I would, and I'm going to. As a matter of fact, I said I'd do the first comp out of the gate as a seared steak.
Ooh.
And I'm going to do that, which I believe is going to be in St. George in February. So I'm going to do a seared steak. I'm going to do it first too, because then at least I have the rest of the season to recover in case in case it doesn't
first
go
place.
great.
Let's just say your seared steak hits first place. What do you do? What are you doing?
Yeah, take the rest of the season
that's a tough one, honestly. Right? Yeah,
you got the golden ticket. Off. You're good to go.
I'll make you a shirt.
Oh,
and then we'll go ahead and just sear from now on, right, Casey? We'll be sear brothers. We'll sear sisters.
That would be a tough situation to actually come out and win it with the seared steak, because I still would really want to do the grill marks, and what I was used to. Mm-hmm. But it'd be hard if it won.
Imagine if Indiana Jones just decided to stick with teaching school because it was just like safe for him, right? Do you think he would be the feature of movies that he is now? No, he wouldn't. He'd be a school teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wouldn't be Han Solo.
He wouldn't be any of those things. What if Han Solo just stayed a pilot, and didn't want to do any kind of illegal stuff? He'd just be Han Solo. He wouldn't be
just a taxi
hero
pilot
of the rebellion.
Sorry, we're nerding out there. Bring Casey back in.
All right, Casey, let's switch up to a little bit. I wanted to kind of go to the backyard thing a little bit, because a lot of people here listen to us and they want to get into barbecue in backyard. And sometimes we talk about, some people on the show say, hey, let's jump into pros. Some people's like, hey, let's ease it back. Let's go into backyards. What's your experience been so far jumping into backyard? I mean, you've only done 2, but still, what is your experience? Some people only do 2. I only did 2, and then I jumped into pro.
I did 3.
So, I mean, that's kind of, getting up there for you. What is your process for backyards? What would you say to someone who's wanting to jump into a backyard competition?
I would say do it. Honestly, just try it. I mean, it's fun, if nothing else. You only have to buy a couple of racks of ribs, maybe 3 racks of ribs, and, have 10, 12 pieces of chicken to pick from, once you're done cooking. The investment isn't that high for the meat. And just do it. It's fun. I would say that I think it would be a little bit more fun if there were some more teams doing it also. So it would be nice if more people were doing the backyards, because I think last year's had like 12 or 13 teams, and this one only had like maybe 7 or 8 in Ogden. So I can only have so much pride in beating, 6 people compared to 20. You know what I mean? So we need to get some more people out doing the backyards, because it's a good time.
Can I tell you something, Casey? In the Midwest, they have like 30 to 50 backyard teams every competition.
See, I know everything's better in the Midwest. I can't handle it anymore.
It's right down the park. Like, they're like, oh, let me just go take my cooker across the street to this backyard competition. Oh crap!
Yeah,
let's go around this big pile of B&B charcoal real fast. Jeez. Anyway, all right, I'm over that. So no, for real though. So what was your process? Because here's my story. I didn't know what to do, so I just jumped onto the YouTubes, and this is where I discovered Malcolm Reed for the very first time.
Genius.
And he does a chicken, so I followed his exactly. And we did well with chicken. So, but I was doing my own recipe for ribs, my own seasonings, my own sauces and stuff, which are all really, really good. If we were all to sit down and eat it, you go, Rusty, this is actually a very good rib. However, in competition, it isn't. I use baby backs because I didn't know any better. This is a funny story. So here I am with the Pitmasters podcast, right? I'm competing all the time. But just little under 3 years ago, little Rusty, who was 41 at the time. So he's little. Very young, very handsome, sets out to do this, grabs some baby back ribs, has no clue what's going on, cooks them, whatever, serves them. Then all of a sudden goes around, hey, what's going on? A fellow competitor. He's like, would you like to try my rib? And it was Nate Benson of Uncle Jesse's, who I just talked about, who I just went to California with, Hey, Nate, look at us. We're all grossed up. And he gives me his rib, and it was flat. I'm like, what is this flat rib? And it's a St. Louis cut. It stays flat, doesn't round up like a baby back. So that changed my whole life. I'm like, oh, I have to do this St. Louis cut. Next time we took 2nd place. And that sealed the deal. But man, it was a really interesting thing. But I went to YouTube and learned a video on how to do it. Now you have Barbecue Champs Academy, but what was your process of learning how to do your backyards, and what did you do to get into them?
I think honestly, the thing that even got me started wanting to barbecue was my mom called me one day and was like, "Hey, check out the show. I think it's on PBS. It's called like the Barbecue Bible or something." And it was Steve Reichland.
Mm-hmm.
And he happened to be cooking ribs, and I was like, you know what? I could do that. And I couldn't because I did the same thing. I went and got a rack of baby backs and put them on my grill and put every seasoning I had in the cupboard on them and made them inedible. And then I was like, man, this is awesome. It was a lot of fun making something so terrible. But then, yeah, same thing. I wound up, that was a long while ago. But yeah, then I wound up on YouTube, same thing. Malcolm Reed, I've probably learned more from Malcolm Reed's videos on YouTube, if nothing else, at least starting spots, than I have anywhere else, because for a long time he was the only one doing barbecue videos or even videos that had any info in them other than just like some guy time lapsing through a rib.
As far as
competition, because everybody was so secretive about everything, they didn't want to tell you anything, but Malcolm always did. So yeah, that's how I got started also.
Nice. So
Malcolm,
we had a review on our podcast page. They want to know a little bit more about what rubs and stuff. We're coming up with all these techniques, but we never really broke down on what to use. So let's do a little quick round table here. You have to pick 3 rubs to start off with in one sauce, and I'll start. I would go with Plowboy's Yardbird. This is for both meats in your backyard for ribs and chicken. So Plowboy's Yardbird.
Backyard is competition or
backyard competition.
Heard.
Yep. So my first one would be Plowboy's Yardbird, and then I'd go with Malcolm's the barbecue, just the straight barbecue rub, and then his hot rub, and then sauce Blues Hogs. That's what I would run with for beginner first time competition.
And this is ribs
and chicken.
Both? You do both the same?
We'll mix it up a little bit. Yeah, but if I was going to go into the barbecue pit stop and be like, I'm going to buy 3 bottles of rubs and 1 sauce for a competition.
Well, what I would do if I was going to barbecue pit stop and I was new, I would ask the friendly people there what to do, because they'll actually give you some really good tips. But what I would use is, I'm a huge Blues Hog fan, so I would just use sweet and savory, bold and beefy. Then I would do the wrap with the honey, the honey, brown sugar.
Yeah, your traditional wrap.
The traditional wrap, and the butter, squeezed butter. And then I would top it off with Blues Hog OG. Yep. And that's how I would roll. And then that's exactly what I would do. It's a fabulous rib. What about you, Casey?
3 rubs, 1 sauce. I would go all Malcolm, Killer Hogs. I go AP, the barbecue rub, the barbecue hot, and then, like everybody else, Blues Hogs original for my sauce.
So Blues Hogs, where it's at. All day, every day.
There's definitely other things out there besides Killer Hogs, but it's an awesome place to start, and you're not going to offend anybody with those flavors either. They're not strange. They're not weird. They're not too much of this or that. So if somebody doesn't like heat, they'll like your ribs. If they do like heat, they'll get a little bit and still like your ribs. You know what I mean? You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings using those rubs.
Yeah, and with chicken, I would inject with Butcher's Original.
Yeah.
Bird Booster. Then I would put Killer Hogs on there, the barbecue rub, and then I put Yardbird.
Yeah.
Just super good. And then when I was to do, I was, again, Blues Hog.
Yeah. Again, yeah.
Just using Blues Hog it works out really, really well. Just the OG, man. But yeah, and one thing about ribs, when you guys put your stuff in, if you guys are starting in the backyard and you do anything we just said, try put a little Tennessee Red in there too, in your tin foil. It's really good. Gives it a really good acidity on the bottom, and a really good kind of heat. Kind of brings the heat a little bit.
It helps with color as well too.
And it's super tasty. So add a little bit of that. Probably this almost a little bit under what I would use with honey. So it's really tasty. Try that. So Casey, what are your plans going forward? Are you just going to hit ACA all the time? Are you a full-fledged, you want to do backyard KCBS? Where do you see yourself in 2 years?
We definitely have been. I mean, we've been talking for years, my wife and I, about competing. And last year, we finally did it after probably literally 5 years of talking about it. So I do want to get into the KCBS more, full on, all 4 meet stuff, and maybe get out of the backyard. But I really love the SCA. I mean, it's just, I don't know why, but it lends itself well to me. I like that a lot. I mean, it's just a lot of fun for me. I wish there was 75 competitions around here that we could go to, because I really enjoy that.
Listen, Midwest.com. Midwest.com. We don't need that right now. Come on, chill out.
But no, we'll hit up a couple of the KCBSs next year, I'm sure, that are local. I don't think we're ready to travel for those quite yet. But yeah, I mean, the backyard that we did in Ogden, it was at a KCBS event with the SCA event also. And it's not, you're not just cooking 2 extra meats going KCBS. Like, it's a drastic difference throwing in brisket and pork butt, it's a whole new game. So I've been practicing comp briskets and pork butts forever, but I've never turned one in, so I have no idea how it would do. So got to throw my hat in the ring eventually,
Right. It's okay. Jump in.
Yeah,
the water's fine. Come on down.
Until you hit it unprepared and it's ice cold. But.
Right.
Right.
Do you cook ancillaries, by the way? Do you compete in the ancillaries categories?
I don't. I cooked I cooked the burger last year at the first comp, and then I cooked the wings at the second comp at ThermoWorks last year. And I think I took 13th out of 14th in wings and like 13th out of 15th in burger. And I was like, hey, I'm here to cook steak. So that wasn't that much fun.
Yeah, ancillaries are tough, man. You hit or you don't. I've never hit mid pack. Like, I'm up or down.
You know what? Right. And the burger was good, and the wings were good, but they weren't competition. Like, you wouldn't be mad about eating them. They tasted good, but they weren't for competition.
Well, cool, man. We really appreciate you coming on. We've been wanting to get you on for a little bit, and now you won this. You kind of forced our hand, so whatever. You do really well, man. Last year, even without the championship series, you did well for yourself. You went to Fort Worth. You're going back this year. Before we go, I want to know, though, what was it like being someone who had just done their first competition ever, and now you're in Fort Worth with Johnny Joseph, with John Lindsay's, with Matt Overson? What is that like?
Oh man, it was so much fun. It was overwhelming as can be, because like you said, our third steak we ever cooked in competition was at the World Series or at the World Championships. Mm-hmm. So it was like, you're just you're thrown into the deep end of the pool right there. But everybody was so nice. We talked to Mark Lambert, Johnny Joseph, Cosmo. We weren't trying to hit them up for tips and things like that, but just going was awesome. And we didn't do terrible. We took 12th out of our group of 47 out there. So we still did pretty good. It was a lot of fun though. And it literally, we were the only team out there from Utah. So everywhere we went, like you keep saying, like Midwest, there were groups of Midwest teams that all knew each other everywhere. And it was just my wife and I. And we go to like the awards dinner on Friday. And we just were not that people weren't accommodating and really nice, but we were just the two of us in this huge group of people. And it was intimidating, but it's going to be awesome this year with having a little bit of Utah backup out there with us and hitting the table.
Let's talk about that before we take off. This just a random guy, wins his golden ticket. What is he going to have to expect when he goes to Fort Worth? What's the process? What's the breakdown? So for the new guy that's going to head down there.
It's
So I know they break you up into groups, right? Into colors.
yeah. So last year we were broke up. We were in group yellow. So they did 6 different colors, I believe it was, or no, 5 different colors, and they tried to do 5 of 60. So we were yellow. So you're going to get broke up into a group is how it works. And on Saturday, everybody cooking on Saturday is actually in the semifinal, is what it is. So you have to finish in the top 10 of your group on Saturday to actually cook the world championship on Sunday. So that's how that works. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's pretty much like any other SCA event you go to. It's just on a much bigger scale. You still draw your name or your number out of a bag for your state selection and all that. It's not different enough that it would like throw you off. It's just on a bigger scale, is what I would say.
That's interesting. If I went, which who knows what the heck's happening with me these
Come
days.
on.
I'd love it. I'm so excited to go. That's like my whole goal is to go to the world championship stakes right now. Just excited because I don't got nothing anymore. I don't got the Royal. I don't got nothing. So I just want that. Well, I do have the KCBS Invitational, but we'll see. Well, hey man, where can people find you on the Instagram, on the Facebooks, anywhere like that?
Facebook and Instagram, we're at Bang On Barbecue. That's all we've got.
Okay.
But yeah, Instagram and Facebook, we're on both of those. And then, that's about it, honestly.
Cool, man. Well, hey,
Sweet.
We really appreciate you coming on for us and hanging out and talking all this stuff. And hopefully a lot of people learned a lot from you. I know I did. So I might not be carting my steaks anymore. That's actually a true story. So, we appreciate it, man. We'll see you around because, you're from Utah. We're from Utah. Maybe I'll find you at an Ace looking for some B&B.
Two lost souls looking for B&B.
Anyway,
I'll tag you guys in photos when I trip over something.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, do it.
Hey,
No, I
Midwesterners.
appreciate it, guys. It was awesome.
Midwesterners, I love you very much. I tried to. All right, man.
I think everybody does.
We appreciate you, man. And we will talk to you soon, guys. Look out for Casey and his wife, and they're Bang On Barbecue on Instagram. He will be posting a lot of stuff coming up. He promised, right, Casey?
Yeah. Yep.
So you guys will have something to look at.
I got it.
If you guys want to watch him out in
Sponsorship.
Fort Worth and stuff like that, follow him and show him some love, guys. And we appreciate it, Casey. You have a good one, man.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. You guys too.
All right,
It was
bye.
nice.